Hi, I'm Derek Ashong, and you are now in the stream. Today, the Occupy movement takes hold of Nigeria as protests sweep across the country. Our digital producer, Ahmed Shihab Eldeen, is back looking out for your live feedback. Welcome, Ahmed. Great to have you in the house.
Derek. Good
no
to be
doubt.
here.
Tweet him using the hashtag AJStream. Also joining him on the couch today is Omoyele Shuore, who is the founder of Sahara Reporters. Shuore, we were talking just briefly about Sahara Reporters, and you cover issues going on in Nigeria and expanding to other parts of the African world. Talk to us about the role of technology in enabling what you guys do.
Well, technology is a new revolution everywhere, whether news reporting, or even childbirth. Anything you can imagine, it's here, and we're just making use of it as much as possible to liberate democratic space for an average African to express themselves and have their views directly beamed to the world as quickly as possible in a very undiluted manner. Before now, we have to rely on New York Times and CNNs of this world who have one reporter in the whole of West Africa and maybe a few fixers telling the story. Now the citizens are telling their story. They're talking about the stories of corruption, not in a way that's demeaning, but in a way that expresses exactly how they feel about it. And it has an empowering modicum to it, because that is how we were able to have Occupy Nigeria today. The reason why the Nigerian leaders weren't prepared for what you saw today was because they had underrated the Nigerian people, having impoverished them for years, that maybe these guys would never do anything. Nigerians haven't risen up like this in the last 20 years.
Well,
but this is what technology can make happen.
Well, it's amazing the fact that the technology is enabling people to speak for themselves, which we've seen lacking in so many countries around the world, particularly in Africa. We're so pleased to have you with us today.
Thank you.
For sure. And of course, this show's all about you, our community, as always. So if you've got a story you want to share or you want to contribute to this dialogue, tweet us using the hashtag AJStream. Before we dive into the main discussion, here's Ahmed with some of your feedback.
Nationwide strikes are continuing across Nigeria as tens of thousands take to the streets and to social networks to voice their opposition to Goodluck Jonathan's decision to end government fuel subsidies. And here at the stream, we've received an overwhelming number of photos, videos, and tweets from our online community. So here are a few of the most creative ones. Now, Ola Zen Master on Twitter posted this photo showing a man seemingly proposing to his girlfriend using a gallon or liter of fuel. The caption reads, "How romantic." And this photo shows a car's gas tank padlocked with 3 locks in order to prevent theft of fuel in Nigeria. And also Dapo Ukubanjo posted this on Twitter, calling it, quote, "Google's contribution to Occupy Nigeria." As you can see, the user typed, quote, "most foolish president ever in Nigeria" into the search box, and Google suggested Goodluck Jonathan as a search query. Now, this tweet right here was one of many that documented the alleged beating and death of a protester by the name of Aderinde Ademola. This is a protester in Ogba, Lagos. This sequence of images shows a policeman raising his arm right there above the man, and this tweet reads, "Remains of protester shot dead by police named as Ademola Aderinto, shot by police." Now, this last photo was one of the ones most widely shared on both Twitter and Facebook, showing Ademola's bloodied body after the confrontation with police. Now, last week, Nigerian netizens circulated a question on Facebook, which we here at the stream posted on our Facebook page and asked you for your response. The question was, which of these, when removed, will give Nigerians the greatest joy? Now, perhaps unsurprisingly, corruption topped the list, followed by the removal of Goodluck Jonathan, and Boko Haram came in third. Remember, here at the stream, we rely on your suggestions, your photos, and your insights to keep bringing you some of the world's most underreported stories. So keep sharing them with us on Facebook and on Twitter using the hashtag AJStream.
Hi, I'm Rebecca, and this is
Kingston.
I'm from London, and he's from
Nigeria.
And we stay tuned with the stream because we love how it keeps us in fashion. I'm in the stream!
Several people were killed on Monday as protests turned violent in the oil-rich nation of Nigeria. It all began on January 1st when President Goodluck Jonathan ended a fuel subsidy, virtually doubling the price of petrol overnight. In a country where 2/3 of the population earns less than $2 a day, the decision was met with widespread anger. Let's take a look at some of the footage that has been coming out of Nigeria. This in particular is from a protest in Kaduna. Now, from these protests emerged the Occupy Nigeria movement. Supporters have now gone beyond the fuel subsidy controversy and are calling for an end to government corruption, poverty, and wealth inequality. The government says the consumption of oil subsidies is unsustainable and a drain on public finances. Recently, the Minister of Information, Labran Maku, held a tweet meet about the crisis. Here's his response when asked if the government will use some of the money saved from the subsidy to pay government debt.
What used to be go to subsidy will now go into public transportation, will go into generation of electricity for Nigerians, will go into growing agriculture and generating more jobs for Nigerians, will go into ICT, to grow our broadband and generate jobs for Nigerians, will go into training Nigerians in skills, young people, for skill acquisition, for job creation. So these are the places, and it is also going to go into water supply, in urban and semi-urban areas in parts of Nigeria. So it's going into development of railways for mass transportation in Nigeria. So it is not going to be used to settle debts.
Now, although Nigeria produces nearly 2.4 million barrels of crude oil per day, it has to import around 70% of its petrol from outside of the country. This is because many of the country's oil refineries are not actually operative, some say due to government mismanagement. Joining us now via Skype to discuss this is Nigerian musician and activist Seun Kuti. Also with us is Gbenga Shisan, social entrepreneur with Enough is Enough Nigeria. I want to add that we reached out to numerous Nigerian government officials, but all declined to appear on the program. Seun and Gbenga, welcome. Seun, I want to begin with you. Why are you, as an artist, involved in this Occupy Nigeria movement?
Well, for me, it is important as a Nigerian first, to be involved in the Occupy Nigeria movement. It's not about being an artist or being an activist. This is being a Nigerian and knowing what other Nigerians go through, that this is a callous decision by our government. This is why I'm a part of it, to see change in my country, to end our government's abuse of the people's senses and rights. We have to end it now in our generation. We cannot sit down the way our parents did and watch Nigeria go bad the way it is today. We have to be a different generation. We have to be outspoken about our future.
Now, on that note, let me take it to you, Gbenga, because the leadership currently that represents some of that prior generation has said that the fuel subsidy is frankly unsustainable and that the money could be better spent. Is there not some truth to that?
Well, what they say is that truth is something that can always be bent, and what the government of Nigeria is doing currently is exactly that, bending the truth in their own favor. Now, if the reason why the government is saying they need to remove the fuel subsidy is because they want to save money to spend on projects. Now, there are two questions. Number one is, what has been done to the money that has already been appropriated for those projects in the budget? And the second question is, why would a government that feeds fat, that spends 72% of Nigeria's budget on itself, why would that same government that allows the president to spend up to 3 million naira per day on food alone, why would that same government then cut off the life support of Nigerians? Because Nigerians are already suffering, and removing fuel subsidy at this point is basically saying, you know what, we know you're suffering, but suffer a bit more. Because ideally, the only contract that the government has with the citizens of Nigeria today is the price of fuel, because it affects everything.
Now, let me actually bring this issue of the government's finances and where the money is spent on officials to you, Amore. This is this is a comment on the salaries of Nigerian officials. And if you look at my screen, it says that the monthly salary for Nigerian senators in US dollars is $15,000. And then they have $118,000 in monthly allowances, meaning total take-home pay of $135,000 per month per senator. Now, we did a little research and we calculated that 109 senators are receiving roughly $177 million in compensation per year. How does the compensation of government officials play into the controversy on this fuel subsidy?
Well, I have described it as the kind of compensation Nigerian officials get is criminal in nature. I think they should be tried for that kind of compensation. A country where 90% of people live on less than $1 per day. It's not only that, they engage in corruption that is known to the world. You know, they steal most of the resources appropriated for building roads, hospitals, and schools. And this is well known, and this is well documented on our website. We have found officials in Nigeria that bought jets. Some of them have 2 jets, some of them have homes. Near here in Potomac, they built hospitals and hotels around the world. All these things are well known. So on top of that, you have this kind of compensation. It means that an average senator in Nigeria is paid more money than President Obama.
Oh, yeah.
You know, in a month. So, and Obama has to cater, as the president of the US, of 300 million people. These are senators that have small constituencies. And on top of that, they live in houses built by the government. They have huge convoys of cars. They consume a criminal amount of gas, by the way, which they don't pay for. So, and then on top of this, they are going after the ordinary people. The 2 gallons, the people who live on less than 1 gallon a day are the people they are going after.
Well, let me push back on that, because we had an interview with the former Nigerian finance minister was speaking earlier today, and she mentioned that, well, this subsidy issue does not affect the price of diesel, which most people use to transport themselves in buses and other forms of public transportation. How would you respond?
That woman is living on La La Land. The truth is that she said the same thing 5 years ago when she gave away $16 billion belonging to Nigeria in a bogus debt repayment process. You know, they said we're owing the Paris Club. They gave away $16 billion that could have gone to do some of these things she's talking about. And her argument at that time was the same. Her argument was that the money that we save from what they call debt servicing, we go into schools, infrastructure, the same lies that she told 5 years ago at the World Bank. She did that. No school, no road, no hospital has been built. She left Nigeria 5 years ago, and she admitted on Al Jazeera today, by the way, that Nigeria has one of the worst infant mortality rates.
Yes.
That was what she left behind, the boo-boo she left behind 5 years ago, that she's back to manage again. You know what they say about statistics? I mean, big lies, right? When you want to tell lies, you tell lies, damn lies, and statistics. And that woman is very good at telling this kind of categorical lies. And that's why we said today that the World Bank needs to bring her back to her office job in DC and leave the Nigerian people alone. Otherwise, there will be a revolution.
Well, there's a lot of commentary happening even online, and people are very heated about it. Let's go right to our community.
Yeah, you know, it's worth mentioning that a lot of the comments are about the fuel subsidy removal, but there's a lot of other issues. People are citing electricity, for example, and the lack thereof. This tweet from Maestroini saying, "Throughout my 25 years in Nigeria, there has never been steady electrical supply. 83% of Nigerians run on generators. So we can talk hopefully about electricity and other issues later on, but I do want to bring up this question that was posed by Yusuf Salihu. He says, and Shayun, maybe you could answer this, can they please tell us what happens to the fuel refined here in Nigeria? Because our refineries are producing at 30% capacity.
Yes, I was asking the same question today when I was walking to the rally, and I saw one of our national petrol stations owned by the NNPC selling petrol at deregulated prices as well. And they don't receive fuel subsidy. They produce fuel locally. So why our price is high? This is the first place the government can combat this pain of the subsidy removal by actually making NNPC drag the market value of petrol in Nigeria down so that the people can afford it, creating competition for these other dealers that want to sell it at huge rates, because the fuel that is left in Nigeria when it's refined is sold to other African countries who do not have fuel at a higher rate. So for that reason, the NNPC don't want the people to use it. They want to lie so they can ship it out and sell it behind the people's back and keep the money for themselves.
So that's why we're having other people echoing some of your sentiments. Paul Iquerel saying, for example, let's have our crude refined locally first as a solution. It would drastically cut costs of fuels. Sorry, go ahead.
I tell you, till today, I'm going to be 29 in 2 days. The NNPC has still not told anybody in Nigeria how much it actually cost them to refine a liter of petrol. How can we believe how much you spend on subsidy when you cannot tell us how much you refine a liter of petrol? Last year, the Obasanjo, in 2010, this same government said they spent only 300 billion on subsidy. How did it jump to 1.3 trillion in less than 12 months?
So let me come to you, Benga, on that very same point. What exactly is happening here? Because there seems to be controversy between the activists and the government about the relative value of the fuel subsidy. What do you think the government should have done?
You know, the interesting thing is that this government set out from the start to confuse people. And now we know the reason they started by confusing people is because they confuse themselves. Now, the government itself, you know, at public hearings, officials of government were asked questions, including the governor of the CBN, who should have such information on their fingertips, and they did not know. Now, you know, one of the key things that we need to say here is the fact that the anger is not only because of fuel subsidy. The anger is about two other things. The anger is about the fact that even while conversation was going on, and the president suggested that April 1 was going to be the day that the subsidy will be removed. While that conversation was going on, 24 hours after he declared a state of emergency, don't forget, this president is the same president who did not go to the site of the bomb blast in Madala until 7 days after the event. Now, he got there 7 days late, after that declared a state of emergency, and then unilaterally decided to give Nigerians a gift they did not deserve. Now, the second point is the fact that this was always going to happen. First subsidy just happened to be the trigger. Nigerians have never known good governance. And that is where the problem is. If Nigerians haven't known good governance and the Nigerians are trusting you for a bit, I mean, this was a president who was a bit popular. I mean, the Supreme Court had just declared he won the elections and all of that. He was a bit popular, and suddenly you need to go to the Facebook with your president. But this is not even an issue about the president.
Benga, I want to interrupt you just there, because there are so many comments coming. My tweet river is looking like the Matrix right now. It's flowing so quickly. Ahmed, I want to come to you because we had some video questions coming from our community as well, which we would love to get some of their voices into the dialogue.
Yeah, I just want to preface one of the video questions with one of the concerns that a lot of people seem to be echoing, which is the amount of money that's spent on governance. Jide Buraimo saying this is a government that wants to spend $1 billion on feeding itself, yet an average Nigerian feeds on $1 a day. And then, many other people echoing Babatunde saying Jonathan must listen to the voice of the masses. If not, Nigerians will make the country ungovernable. But then, to Derek's point, we have video questions, for example, one from Fritz, saying that perhaps all of these protests are a waste of time. Let's listen in.
Hello, this is Fritz from Lagos, Nigeria. I believe the fuel subsidy strike is just a waste of time. At the end of the day, government will just get the upper hand. It's just a matter of settling labor, which always happens. So why protest?
Well, I'm sure there's somebody who was saying that in Tunisia a few months ago. There's someone ignorant enough to say that in Egypt a few months ago. But we have a different society in those places now. And I'm not saying that we're there yet, but you can never take away protest in the life of a country that requires so much to put a lot of things that have gone wrong right. And peaceful protest is something that I'm proud of Nigerians that they're doing now. And it's just perhaps the last, acceptable means for a lot of, because we don't know what will happen if they keep killing people like they did in Ilorin last week and they did in Lagos today and Kano. What Nigerians might decide to do. They are closing down the avenue for peaceful protest now. Dialogue. But to say that this is not going to change anything, well, I'll ask that guy to keep watching, because what I see in Nigeria today, and all of us are watching, is that there's determination on the part of Nigeria, especially young people, to change things the way things are.
Well, we've got some more comments coming from actually those young people. Let's get another video question.
This one is from Ahmed. Let's listen in.
My name is Ahmed. I'm calling from Zaria, Nigeria. The people are talking, they're voicing their opinion, and the government is not listening. And the ultimate sovereignty resides within the people.
So on that question, I actually want to take this to you, Sheun, because one of the things that we've been hearing reported significantly is about these issues of ethnic and religious-based violence in Nigeria. Is there a fundamental ethnic conflict between the people that Ahmed is referring to?
Well, in Nigeria, there's being what it is, historically, there's always been ethnic tension between different ethnicities in the country. you know. But right now, the religious tension in Nigeria is not a doing of the people. It's a fault of the government. Because if people had education, if people had enlightenment, if people had means to work and express themselves freely, they wouldn't have to resort to violence to get the government to hear them. Here we are peacefully protesting for change, and the government is still giving us no ears. They're not giving us a light of day to explain ourselves. They believe that their decision is best for everybody. This is something we cannot all accept. You know, so it's not about the government thinking that the people will lay low, or somebody bribing the labor and the labor backing out. We started the protest without the labor. The labor only called this strike because the people wanted to be on the streets.
So let's get Benga's response on that tip. So the people have taken to the streets. What has been the government, the police, and military reaction to today's protest?
You know, it's interesting. The night before the people chose to go on the streets, the president, you know, came on TV and announced, you know, this was 2 nights before. Actually, people went on the streets immediately, you know, on the 2nd of January, you know, in different places in Kano. And on Saturday, the president comes on TV and announces, you know, that he's cutting, you know, the salaries, basic salaries, mind you, of public officials, of political office holders by 25%. Now, every Nigerian now knows. The reason why we've been cheated before now is because we didn't know the details. But now an average Nigerian can tell you what the budget says in terms of cutlery sets for, you know, for the presidency. Now, the president comes on TV and says that they're going to cut 25% of their basic salary. Now, we know the problem is not with the basic salary. The problem is with the ungodly allowances that you allocate to yourselves, nameless things like security vote, which you haven't spent on security of the nation. And then don't forget that this is the same president who said on TV, live, you know, and this wasn't even live, by the way, it was recorded, said on TV that, you know, we'll cut expenses. And now we're hearing, now this isn't confirmed, but it is not beyond, you know, this presidency, that political party members were put on 2 jets that, you know, that are funded by the Nigerian people to go to South Africa for the 100th anniversary, basically to go for a party.
I want you to hold that. I want you to hold that thought, and I want to just indicate to my screen this point that the monthly salary for Nigerian senators is 15,000. The monthly allowances that you just mentioned are 7 times that amount, and that cumulative comes to the salary. I want you to stay with us. We're going to go and take this conversation into the post show, but before we do, Ahmed is following some key leads for the stream. Let's go to those.
So this is the part of the show where we share some of the other stories we're currently following here at the stream. Syrian opposition activists are organizing a day of rage on January 21st. Despite the presence of Arab League observers in the country, over 100 people have been killed in clashes with police. Now, mass demonstrations continue to erupt across the country, prompting some to predict another showdown between the opposition and the government. Already today, Syrian activists appear to have hacked the parliament's website, and as you can see right here on my screen, they've posted calls for more protests on that page. Our next lead is from Yemen, where activists are organizing a day without qat to protest corruption. Now, the mildly addictive plant, seen right here, is chewed by many Yemenis on a daily basis, and the campaign is quickly spreading across several cities and social networking sites. One activist even said anyone chewing qat will not be allowed to enter the square where protesters are gathering. Now, our final lead follows a Saudi-Israeli hacking war. The feud began after hacker Ox Omar allegedly hacked Israel's biggest sports website and posted a link containing 400,000 Israeli credit card numbers. In a revenge cyber attack, Israeli hackers claim to have obtained thousands of Saudi credit card details and are threatening to expose the data should hacking on Israel continue. Those are today's stream leads. If you want to find out more, visit stream.aljazeera.com/leads, where you can vote for the stories you're interested in, and we may very well feature them on an upcoming show. Derek.
Thank you, Ahmed, and thank you, Shawara, for being with us. We're going to continue our conversation on Nigeria. Thank you, our community, for being with us as well. Stay tuned. We're going to bring back Sheun and Benga as well. On Tuesday, we will speak to Senegalese presidential candidate and international music star Youssou N'Dour. But for now, join us at stream.aljazeera.com. We continue this conversation on Nigeria. Tweet us, #AJStream. We'll see you online. Now, thank you so much. Welcome back to the show. We're going to continue this conversation about what is happening on the ground in Nigeria. We're joined by two guests from actually who are on the ground physically there, and also by Shawari, who's the founder of Sahara Reporters. I want to take this one now to Benga. Benga, we have this comment coming from @EdmundMorgan on Twitter, who says, a yam owner that keeps buying pounded yam is a fool. Nigeria, embrace change, suffer it once and for all, and suffer no more. How would you respond?
Sorry, I missed part of the conversation. Could you repeat that again?
Yes, he says a yam owner that's buying pounded yam is a fool. Nigeria, embrace change, suffer it once and for all, and suffer no more. He's using this as a metaphor for an oil-producing nation that continues to import more than 70% of its petrol. How would you respond?
You know, this is even really annoying. The fact that we're still at the point where we started, scores of years ago, many years ago, in terms of depending on importation is in itself annoying. If you look at the fact that, and that's one of the things that, one of the things that, that has come up recently, that why can we not, maintain properly the refineries in Nigeria? Unfortunately, again, tons of money has been pumped into turnaround maintenance, and this money goes into oils. And that's why when the government comes around and says things like, you know what, we're definitely going to save money, and when we save this money, we're going to use it to make this happen and that happen and that happen, the quality of that conversation dies with the fact that people do not trust this government. And that is fundamental. That is where it is.
Let's go to Sheun then on that issue of government trust. What do you believe is at the root of this question of corruption in Nigeria? It seems that it has gotten so out of hand. Why so?
Well, as I said, at the same time, it's still the lack of education. People have been intimidated for so long. And you have to also see that Nigeria is a very religious country, where the religious leaders all preach for people to be docile in their approach towards life. So people just lay their heads down and pray for it to become their turn one day to make it. So corruption, people see it as God-given opportunity. God has put him there, that's why he can steal. One day God will put me there so I can do mine. This is the basic general consensus in Nigeria. So when people like me, Benga, will begin to speak up, they say it is because we don't have the opportunity to be there to steal money. You understand? So this is the propaganda that the government tries to spread everywhere. Many people have tweeted me that have been paid by rival political parties to be against Jonathan Goodluck. You have to understand that the level of education in this country is low, not only in this country, in the whole of Africa. And it's this government's fault. 12 years into democracy right now, in this fifth republic in Nigeria, is our 12th year into democracy. Jonathan Goodluck has been a part of the ruling party since the beginning in 1999. And nothing has been done by the federal government. Not one thing in 12 years. Not one road, not one school, not one healthcare center. Nothing that the poor people can afford. They only build libraries for their dead friends to immortalize them. They open roads for Bill Clinton when it comes to Nigeria and name it after him. But what have you done to impact the life of your people? One thing.
You know, that's a really good question that you ask right there. And it's also worth mentioning that it seems like it could be unprecedented times, as we mentioned earlier in the show, at least judging by the tweets that we're seeing. We have Ale De Jobi too on Twitter saying, "This ain't like any protest of the past. Access to mobile internet and social networks has changed the framework of this protest." We then have another tweet from Mo Kwat saying, "For the first time, protests against the unpopular policy of the government are being seen all over the 36 states united under Occupy Nigeria." And just to show you, our viewers, we have this map on the Enough is Enough Nigeria Coalition. This is an organization, this is their website. You see this map shows, this is posted on January 5th, but it shows some of the protests across, many different parts of, all of the states.
So I want to actually add, given what you just tweeted,
Sure.
We just got this tweet from @SmartUche that says, "My fear is that this protest will not lead to what is happening in Arab countries due to perhaps to a government crackdown." How would you respond, Shoaib?
It's already happening. They are killing, defenseless citizens. Now, we've recorded about 6 deaths since last week, and the police doesn't seem to give up yet because the people are going to keep carrying on. this struggle until victory is attained and achieved. We cannot continue to live like this in Nigeria, and this is very clear. You know,
but why now?
An average.
But just let me ask, because there are all of these problems of corruption, these issues of economic degradation. We haven't even gotten to some of the environmental corruptions. We haven't dived that deeply into the ethnic tensions that were previously mentioned. Why not before? Why now?
Well, like I said, information flow is responsible for this. People have just decided now to jettison their fears. They have information and they're in control of their destiny because they can control information. In the past, the Nigerian government used to lie to people through the only TV station in the country. Even when they had TV stations that are private, they were able to bribe those TV stations. For example, last week they paid some contract sum to one of the owners of the big TV station so that he'll be happy and at least be on the fence. So this is the way they have been operating. But now Nigerians control their own media and they control their own anger and they can unleash it whenever they want. And what has happened is that Nigerians are united. We have even seen the fallacy that we have religious and ethnic tensions disappear since last week because Muslims and Christians are holding hands in Kano. You know, Hausas and Yorubas are fighting elsewhere. And we are discovering that some of the attacks that have been reported recently were actually carried out by government agents.
Well, it's interesting because I was just reading a report that there was a gentleman who was captured trying to firebomb a church dressed in traditional Muslim garb. It turned out he was a Christian from the South.
These are some of the tactics they have been using, but Nigerians are smarter and wiser now. And this government and the ruling elite and the TV elite in Nigeria, they're in trouble.
Well, you know, I just want to point this photo out because, you know, this is one of the photos that people are circulating. Supposedly, it's showing Muslims in Nigeria praying with Christians behind them holding the signs and guarding their prayers. And it also is a correlation to some of what we saw in the Arab world early on in Egypt, you know, Christians and the Copts circling around the Muslims. So just very quickly, if I can, you know, a lot of people, and maybe someone on the ground, Shoyan, maybe you could answer this. People say that the role of social media in all of these uprisings in the Arab world, you know, even in Eastern Europe in parts, but now in Nigeria, has played a role, but not a central role or not a pivotal role. I mean, what would you say, judging by being on the ground? How central a role has it, or is it playing?
Shoyan, for you.
Shoyan, that's for you.
Okay, well, the media in Nigeria, well, you know, I think they're a bit on the fence on the issue. You know, I think they are saying, you know, they have to be as neutral as possible since they are media, they cannot take sides. You know, but I personally believe that media is the voice of the people. The media should show the sentiments of the people. You know, in Nigeria, for example, well, we were debating this oil subsidy last week before the strike commenced this week to gain support and mobilize. We are giving the government officials an hour on TV. And when we come to speak against, you have 10, 15 minutes. You know, so the media is not really, you know, it's part of what we have to change. Because if you really investigate private media companies in Nigeria, they are all owned by people that are favorable to government, ex-government officials or people still serving in government, you know, are the real people behind the whole thing, you know. So I feel the social media is what has really pushed this, our movement, you know, and I'm happy people are computer literate in Africa today. They can go online and join this movement quite easily. And that's what has been happening.
Let me ask you, Benga, because this is a question that is of personal interest to me. All through the Arab Spring, people kept asking me, when will we see an African Spring? When will it happen in sub-Saharan Africa? You know, what will happen with the rest of the continent? And a lot of young Africans felt that they looked at their North African brothers and they're like, yes, we have the same challenge. We want to see the same kind of change. But realistically, is this change possible if the eyes of the world are not trained upon the society? If Nigerian media can't or won't report it, if international media, we don't know to what degree they will fully cover it, is social media enough to put the kind of pressure on a government to make these changes, or will we just be seeing the loss of many young lives?
You know, it's interesting that we're in a country where social media is kind of special. Don't forget, we've got a Facebook president. Now, this is a man who launched this campaign on Facebook and wrote a book called Me, My Friends, and I, based on the comments of his friends on, you know, on that social media platform. Now, that is the context for Nigeria. Yesterday, the president said that people have used social media basically to spread false information and all that. What that says to me is that social media is having a huge impact in Nigeria. as far as this, current set of events are concerned. Now, it's also interesting that we don't expect the national TV station to broadcast, something that doesn't favor government, because it's basically, at the moment, a propaganda tool. But there are also some media, some traditional media institutions that have reported fairly. But what I would say is that social media has actually played a lot of role, because don't forget, this is the same government that actually assumed that the protests will never happen. And if they were going to happen, they were not going to be at this, on this scale. And the reason is very simple. The government assumed basically that people would make noise, would just rant on social media, and that would be the end of it. But unfortunately, what they didn't know was that when anger meets with technology, when these two collide, and what is driving it is something that is not just happening now, but has built over time. A few days ago, I said it, that you say Nigerians are resilient, but right now, Nigerians have reached escape velocity, which basically means that at this point, you don't need to do so much to get them going. First subsidy removal happened, it became a Twitter, discussion in Nigeria, and from there, it became a tool. Twitter, Facebook, all the social media channels became a tool for people to organize. And don't forget, people learned of the venue of today's protest mostly via social media. Of course, traditional media is still being used, people are still passing the word around. But the fact that there are 43 million people online, yes, just about 4.3 of them, 4.8 million of them are on Facebook and all that. But reality is the fact that right now, unlike many years ago in Nigeria, social media is playing a critical role for sending information.
So, Benga, on that very point, actually, I want to point out this final tweet. This is coming from @Nubian Cheetah on Twitter. It says, when are we going to have an African Spring like the Arab Spring? #our time. On that note, I want to thank you, Sheun. I want to thank you, Benga. I want to thank you, Shawara, so much for being with us. We're going to continue following this story. Ahmed, thank you for bringing the community into it. Continue to tweet us using the #AJStream. It's been a long time since we've seen this kind of volume of commentary. We will continue to cover this story. As always, we will see you online.